Hi, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Manage to Retain. I want to talk about a topic around productivity. And specifically, the topic I want to talk about is, I call it the holy grail of business, this little slider. And on one side of the slider is profitability. I think the reason everyone is in business is to move that slider as far to the right towards that profitability as possible. But on the other side of it is employee satisfaction. If you slide too much towards profitability and you start working your people too hard, then the employee satisfaction starts to drop. And then ultimately your profitability goes down. So it's almost like there's this fine balance between the two that you need to find. Sherri and Lou, you all are leadership coaches. Do you all ever feel like that slider is something that every business wishes they had?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because they all live in it. They all live in the slider, right? And I think that's what it comes down to. But here it is, right? The perspective and where they live is different from frontline workers and then leadership, right? The balance comes with the space in between. It really does, right? Because we get see this all the time when we get a phone call for training and development. Is we want to guide these new managers or guide these frontline workers into producing their teams better, and so that, of course, what they're really saying is we want the bottom line to increase. But then when you get those frontline workers in and you get those front managers in, and you find out from them that they're living on the I'm not sure I'm appreciated side of the slider.
Yeah.
So now how do we fill the gap between the two? And that is always a big challenge, because then we end up having challenges and symptoms from different perspectives. But the bottom line is important. So how do we accomplish both?
Yeah. And I think part of the challenge is always just visibility, right? As leaders, just having visibility into what is actually possible. I mean, I know I'll talk about myself. How many times I think something is possible or impossible, and that guides what I actually do. I've got my own blind spots. I mean, I can see the two of you all, but I think there's a desk behind me, but that's because I've seen it before. I don't actually know until I turn around and see it. So I've already got an inherent bias, and that's actually my strength as much as it is my weakness. And if we could just see what actually is, that would give us a capability of saying, oh, that's not what I'm seeing. I mean, or that's what I can't see, my blind spot. Mm-hmm. So the question I would like to ask you all is, do you feel like leaders are often aware of what is actually possible today within the organization and what is not possible? Because I think that's part of trying to figure out how to get that slider right. Is that a fair question?
I believe that leaders know it's possible.
Okay.
I do. I believe that they know it. I think that and that's why they're leaders. They can see things from a bigger perspective, right? We talk a lot about this. We talk about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. These are terms that we talk about in corporate. We talk about at leadership. We have the vision. We can see it. We know the capabilities of those that we lead. That's what causes us to be disappointed or frustrated over the non-production, over the not hitting the numbers, over the disappointment of we haven't reached where we believe you all can get us. That's where that disappointment is. Yes, we believe that as leaders. Leaders do know this, but do they really know though? Which is something that you talk about a lot, Vinay. Do they really know where it begins and what the viewpoint is there?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'd like to bring some graphs up here so we can actually maybe take a look at some real data. I mean, we've changed out some of the names here, but I'd like to be able to show what's happening in a real organization here and what is possible, what it actually is, because I think that will give some more clarity as to what possibly could be and how to get there.
Love that. That's where we got to begin.
All right.
With the data.
So I'm going to share this, and I'm
I
going
just
to
want to add too, I think it just depends on the leader. And because we can be such a visionary, but then there's still a disconnect of how to translate that to other folks around them, or whatever position that they may be, especially the middle management, trying to relate to the frontline workers. So it is a trickle down effect, which is common, but that's where I believe, anyway, I've seen is the disconnect, and the language being used at one level is not the same at a different level. It's like, okay, how do you translate that?
How do you break it down?
How do you break it down to really what the end all is? What's in it for me?
You're throwing the football, but there's nobody to catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to have we need to have, as leaders, we have to have the vision. That's why we're there. One of a leader is a good leader, right? A successful good leader, that one of the qualities that should be looked after and utilized is that visionary perspective, seeing things much bigger than the average person, because that's what's going to kind of bring the ship along. But without the other people, the navigation is not there. And without breaking that down into what we call in some terms in companies is siloing. It's not departments, though. We're siloing out or breaking up that vision so that everybody else has a piece in that to get where we want to be, for sure.
So let's take a look at some examples here. And we've got a whole slew of people that we can take a look at here. I'm going to focusing on this one person. Let me give you a quick orientation to someone who hasn't seen this before. Basically, what we've done is this organization, they've got vehicles and they've got their service technicians who go out on the road to service their customers. So field services company, and this really doesn't matter what the type of company is so much as we've got data that we can collect on them. In this case, they collect driver behavior because their people drive vehicles. They got the efficiency of those people in performing those roles, their net promoter score, their customer service scores and ratings and calls and all that kind of stuff, as well as their tech referral percentage. I mean, how many times are they referring, how often, what things are they referring, so on and so forth. And they rank them based on these 4 different factors, 4 different dimensions in performance of that role. The overall role score, as in the average person in this company, has got a 56 out of 100. So 0 to 100 is the scale. Average person is at a 56. Dakota Z, in this case, has got a 30. And that comes from a number of those 4 dimensions: driver behavior, their efficiency in the role, their net promoter score, and their tech referral score. And you can kind of see that anything that's 80 and above will be in green. Anything 20 and below will be in red. Everything else is in yellow. You can kind of see also this graph here, which is a little more of a geographic representation of that. 100% is on the outside, 0% is on the inside. You can see where Dakota needs a little bit of help here. The average is performing like this dark gray. She's in this blue. Sherri and Lou, dissect for me, kind of break this down for me. What do you all see when you're looking at Dakota here?
Well, what's really amazing about this particular graph, Vinay, is that you're not just seeing the breakdown, the overall company's role score, but you're also seeing the overall top 5 techs here.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the full comparison. But this gives you what we call a holistic view. We're not really saying, okay, this person's not performing. We're saying, how does this person look in relation to everyone else being included? Right? It goes right down to Vinay, one of your company's purposes of inclusion, right? We're including it holistically. And so with that being said, would you say that Dakota there's some challenges here in some way, maybe whether it's her or whether it's the gap between her and the other things that may not be being said? Like would you not agree that there is certainly a significant challenge here? Although there's some significant goods too.
Well, it's also possible of no direction. And I think that's ultimately what we're talking about too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can certainly see that in some aspects here, right? They certainly are good drivers, or certainly have a good NPS score. But what about the others that really round this out? I mean, there's certainly some information that Dakota most likely doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you can tell a lot from this just purely from a point of view of just being able to look at this graph and quickly see, gosh, I want this to all be blue when in fact this thin little sliver in the middle, this kind of almond shape or diamond shape is all that she's performing as right now. It gives you a sense as a leader as to where you pay your time and attention. And as many times as you may have said things, how much of that is actually being received.
Mhm.
Right. And I think there's an opportunity to have a conversation with Dakota and say, hey, Dakota, can I help you? And I here are places I'd like to help you first. I mean, if she's having difficulty in this tech referral area where she's doing quite ineffectively, it might be because Dakota's just a very shy person and doesn't like to talk with people, and her personality is as much a strength as it is a weakness. And in this case, it's rearing its ugly head because she believes that trying to do tech referrals is about sales, when in fact, it might be just more about going to her and saying, you know, these people called us because they wanted our help. They may not know how else we can support them in sitting out in their backyard without mosquitoes. Interesting. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, that's all it is, Dakota. It's not about sales. It's about allowing them to have the freedom to sit in their backyard.
Mhm. Yeah. Or it could even be, it could be the other side of it. Well, maybe Dakota never received any type of development training in tech referring.
Yeah. So
perhaps what she was told was different.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's lots of opportunities to find, and look, there's also the opportunity to find out that if this score doesn't change over time after you spend some time and effort, this is an objective feedback mechanism for her to see that, is this the right role for you? And that's not an accusatory kind of thing. This is based on actual performance compared to everyone else, saying, I see you're struggling here. There's got to be some stress on her shoulders from being in this position week over week over week. That's got to be a tough place to be. Nobody likes to be a failure.
Yeah, that's true, right? I mean, there's a 26-point difference here. Let's talk bottom line symptoms here, right? I mean, what does that equate to? Dollar signs. That equates to a lot. I mean, that's a big percentage.
So let's compare and contrast that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. That's a big percentage, right?
So I want to compare and contrast that to someone else we had found in here that actually, where do we have it? We're going to look at Darnell here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Completely different person in the same exact role, completely different picture here, right? We've got somebody who's got a 77, which is a 21-point gain on the average, so significantly better than the average. So 77 out of 100 versus 56. You can see on the tech referral side, Darnell is doing fantastic here. Got a tech referring score of 87, and 70s across the board for everything else. Doing significantly better than the average employee. Sherri, Lou, what are you all seeing here? What kind of comes to mind as a business leader? What can they do with seeing something like this?
Well, first off, they're a rock star, right? I think it's the ideal situation, especially in all of the quadrants that we're talking about here. But I also take it one step further, at least it comes to my mind, is that since this person does have a lot of these strengths, that I love using, or at least helping another person, especially from the one that we just looked at, and picking out, hey, he's really good about tech referring. Let's match him up to somebody that doesn't have the great strengths and have that collaboration, so they can get tips, tricks, something that can help along that person. That's what I love, taking the strength of one and then strengthen another person, and that's the law of multiplication, right?
It is, yeah. If we're not using Darnell right now, for anything besides what he's doing, like, we're not using him as a mentor or as a trainer or as somebody who can develop other people in this role, then we're doing it wrong. We don't want to copy. We don't want an exact replica of Darnell because everyone's different. Don't expect that. And I think expectations really can damage leadership effectiveness. As we don't want to duplicate people. We want differences. We want diversity, but we want to have consistency. Consistency means what can we bring from this table to add to this table to create that balance, move that slider more towards that center, more towards the balance of being able to see productivity and engagement.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, imagine if Darnell here is also a quiet person, just like Dakota was, and we get Darnell and Dakota into the same room and say, "Hey, Darnell, you're a pretty soft-spoken guy. How is it that you get so many tech referrals? Is there an approach or a way that you think about this that Dakota might be able to learn from? Because it's going to be a lot cheaper as an organization, a lot more effective as an organization to keep Dakota on board as opposed to trying to find a brand new person altogether, because that's going to take another 6 to 12 months, right?
Oh yeah. Especially since they're really good. Dakota's really good in a couple of aspects of their role. We just need to, there's something there. We just need to engage them in on.
So I'm going to turn off the screen share here. I mean, I wanted to give a quick snapshot. We kind of started talking about this idea of that the holy grail of the slider, right? Profitability, productivity on one side, and then employee satisfaction. I mean, I think we can see with Dakota that slider was wasn't on either side, and it's not. That's not where you want to be as a leader. You want them to be able to choose between you want to choose profitability and satisfaction. Mm-hmm. It may not be training purposes. It may not just a lack of clarity or direction. Now we can provide that, and we kind of get back onto that slide. We're focusing on the slider. We can see with Darnell in that graph that actually, I think you might actually have that dialed in just perfectly for Darnell right now. So putting more stops on his route, give him more work may not be the right thing to do, but at the weekly stand-ups, getting him to come and talk about how he gets so many tech referrals every week is actually a fantastic thing to do, because now Darnell doesn't leave because he loves working for your company.
That's right. Yeah. And have him do that for everybody. Don't just have him do it for one person.
Yeah.
Let's have him involved in our team meetings and say, you got to tell us your story. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So in terms of principles, I mean, you have 10 principles that that leaders can use to lead with influence. Is there a principle or two that you would point to here that could help shape how someone approaches this?
Yeah, there's two of them specifically, but one I think really we're targeting is the equipping principle. Mm-hmm. Equipping your people. I know for me, and I'm sure Sherri can say the same thing, is throughout my life and in my career, I experienced many situations where managers or supervisors are basically they're giving, we've talked about this before, Vinay, providing the people the arrow to get it done, to execute, but not really providing them the tools like the bow, right? To equip them to make it happen. Like, here you go, but not giving them the rest of it. And a lot of times that happens with the no direction symptom here. So what ends up happening is we get frustrated as a leader. We get frustrated with the person. We get frustrated with the fact that the bottom line's not happening. We blame it on them because of non-performance. And then we see people being unhappy. They leave or we transition them. But we didn't really provide them both tools. We didn't just provide them not just here, execute. We also provide them the how to execute in a way that's going to drive the number that we're looking for. So we need to ask that, right? Are we coaching right? Are we mentoring? Are we providing that? Even if we're not doing it, are we giving the Darnells to the Dakotas to be able to give them that mentoring so that they then in turn can help provide those tools to become super successful? The equipping principle is one. Well, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And the only thing I would add is just as a leader is to make sure that don't just give somebody the policy manual and yes, this is what our procedure is. We're talking about something beyond that. Yes, they need to know those foundations and the ins and outs of whatever their role is, but this goes beyond with the equipping. Is that safe to say? That's my point, is just that there's, we're humans, right? And we're emotional creatures, so we need to lean in on that and not forget that. I think that's the most important thing here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking couple minutes to walk through this. I think that holy grail of that slider, I think we're getting closer and closer to it. Maybe this gives us a snapshot as to how you can see where your people are, if they're on the slider or not. And if they are, how do you get that slider to exactly the right place? I think that's really powerful. Then you can think about what you need to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to, which I think for me, at least as a leader, that's really important.
Yeah, agreed.
having that focus.
Very much so. Yeah.
Thank you for everyone who listened in. Hopefully this was a good use of time and you got something out of it. But Sherri and Lou, thank you for your time.
You bet.
Welcome.
Thanks for that.
Yep.